Hello and welcome to the magic of fishing. Today you join me for my third and final day of my mini autumn adventure to Collingham 2025. I arrived on Sunday afternoon in the sunshine, and if you've seen the two previous videos from this very memorable visit, you'll know that I've been struggling with really bright conditions. The river's still low despite the fact we're heading into October. And I timed this trip because my very first visit to Collingham, which was one of the best fishing experiences of my entire life, was around this time last year. And of course, us humans, in our heads, everything's going to be the same. There was a bit of a storm blowing on that first trip and the barbel went berserk. I caught over 20 fish in 3 days, despite not really knowing this stretch of the Trent at all. I was advised to fish it by some of you lovely folks at home when you saw me struggling to catch a Trent barbel elsewhere, and it lived up to its reputation. Collingham, run by Collingham Angling Association, is a day ticket venue. Anyone can turn up and fish it for £10 a day. I think that's marvellous value. And the fantastic club bailiff, Kai, is one of the most helpful and knowledgeable bailiffs I've ever come across. Every time you come, he's on the bank collecting the money and dispensing invaluable advice, and he's certainly helped me get amongst the fish in the previous 2 days. The first fishing session was very much about traditional stick float tactics, a bit of feeder as well, but really targeting the silvers, something I'd not done at Collingham before. And despite the bright conditions and the low, clear river, I did manage to finally get amongst some dace and roach. I had a lovely afternoon and evening. The second day was another blue sky, high pressure day, far from ideal for targeting the barbel, and even the stick float proved tricky on a new peg for me yesterday as I filmed this. But I did manage 2 beautiful barbel last knockings, just the last hour or so before I had to be off the water, and they more than made up for the long wait. One of them was just a double, £10 on the nose. Fantastic memories locked away for me again at Collingham. Today something very exciting has happened. It's raining. It's grey, dull, and it might not last all day, but it just feels much more fishy. So I'm going to go all out barbel. I've come much further upstream to where I have been fishing, up towards the weir, although I'm not quite in the weir field. And it just feels like if the barbel are going to bite, today is my best chance. And for now at least, I'm under the brolly, which really makes me feel more at home at Collingham, far more used to unpleasant conditions, let's say, when I've been fishing here in the past. This is only my 4th visit. First time I came around this time in 2024, it really did chuck it down. The river was much higher than it is now, much more coloured, and the fishing was much more prolific. And I do feel like my luck could be in again today. I've got an amazing sense of freedom, happiness just being on the bank before I even started fishing, and that's because I had to get up early again this morning, but not for the fishing. I had to join an important work meeting on my laptop, obviously virtually. I wasn't there in person, but it was still a little taster of a reminder of work, which I'll be going back to tomorrow when this trip's over. Be driving back down the M1 late tonight as soon as I stop fishing. A good 3-hour trip for me. And yeah, that work call this morning just reminded me that that's how I spend most of my waking hours, is working, and have done most of my life. So to be back on the bank, not only with a chance of another Collingham barbel on the cards, but just having had that reminder about what it's like to sit behind a desk and stare out the window and wish you were fishing rather than actually doing it, it's done me the world of good. It's quite a tiring thing to come big river fishing for 3 days on the trot. Not that I'm complaining, but you know, everything gets a little bit achy, my back in particular. But it just feels grand to be back on the Trent, the river I grew up entranced by as a kid and a young man growing up in Sheffield. I don't get to fish it much these days, and I've timed this trip with the return from the final match of the season with my old friends from Dronfield Woodhouse Sports and Social Club. Been fishing with that club since I was a young lad. My granddad signed me up, and if you've read the book, you'll know all about it. So that was nice to have a weekend up in Sheffield with my dad. But then to get 3 days on the Trent, it's been marvellous. The second reason my luck feels good today is the rain. Finally, grey skies, and I never used to like the rain. Still don't love to fish in it, but ever since I've got into barbel fishing the last few years, it's what you crave, and particularly this river, the Trent, it needs fresh water, it needs flow, it needs a bit of colour in it, and we're not going to get that today just from a few light showers, but the overcast skies, the lower pressure, that is all conducive to give me the chance of a barbel during daylight hours. This is a fishery where it's quite possible not only to get a barbel during daylight, but to absolutely fill your boots if you're lucky and get the conditions right. The third reason I feel lucky is as I drove up to this section along the old white chalk track, it's quite busy, a lot of cars for midweek, much quieter on the conveyor belt field where I've been fishing the last couple of days. Barely saw a soul there, but busier up towards the weir as a rule. And the peg I had in mind, or the area I had in mind that Kai had recommended to me yesterday while we're having a chat, was one of the few areas free. So there's a chap up to my left, but not, you can't see him, good way up, and another lad fishing down on the right, but again, no sight of him. So despite it being quite busy, it really feels like I've got the river to myself. We really need smell-o-vision to give you the full effect of this ground bait, but this is the bucket of very stinky ground bait that I mixed up yesterday and used to good effect once that sun had begun to set. It's a hemp and garlic mix. I think it's Vortex baits, lots of pellet you can see, between micro and 8mm, mostly 4s and 6s. With the river being so low and clear, I'm keeping it on the small side, small particles. And bait wise, I'm leaving the boilies in the bag, sticking with pellet. This is again something that really needs smell-o-vision, but it's a much cherished bag of 8mm garlic pellets they were given to me by my friend Martin down in Throop, an absolute legend of an angler and a lovely man who I've got to know since fishing Throop over the last year. And he gave me those last time I went down to fish through the Dorset Stour and visit him, have a beer, and they have caught me a few barbel since on the Trent. I was here in July. That was the only other chance I've had to fish Collingham for some months, and managed a couple of late fish that trip as well, including another double. So many barbel here and big ones, and it's just getting the river in the right mood and working out how they want it. Sometimes it's maggots, hemp, small particles, live baits, casters work well, and of course when it's up and coloured, big smelly baits like meat, boilies, paste can score well as well. But these really smelly and relatively small 8mm pellets from Martin, and fishing them on a banded hair rig, fairly small hook, size 10 barbel hook. That worked for me yesterday evening after a very long wait, and it would be very nice if I don't have to wait quite as long today. The tide is out at the moment, as you can see by all the gravel and sand that's exposed. And I've had barbel at all stages of the tide from Collingham, but I do like it when there's a bit of extra water in, and particularly the runoff after the tides come in. I think that'll be late this afternoon, early evening when that happens today. So again, the last couple of hours might be my best chance. For the moment, I've got one rod cast almost all the way over towards that tree on the far bank, probably one or two rod lengths off it, where the water's quite deep. You can tell that from the rocks lining the far bank. And then the second right hand rod or downstream rod I've cast to the middle of the river and a bit further downstream to make sure both lines are kept apart. Hopefully not got any problems if I'm lucky enough to get a hook up. And I've obviously been busy chatting to you folks and setting the scene for another magic, hopefully, session at Collingham. So we're just into autumn as I'm filming this, and it does finally feel like autumn. It's felt more like summer the last 2 days. I've actually felt the sun on my face at the end of the day, and I should have brought a bit of sun cream with me, really, but you don't expect to be doing that in autumn, of course. But now you know what I'm planning for the day. It's about time I start making some casts. It's really important to keep the feed going in at Collingham, not just whack them out, sit back and watch and wait, but keep some feed going down through the water and onto the deck, because even when the river's low like this, it's still pushing through, and a lot of it will get washed away, especially the ground bait, smaller pellets. But you also want to start, getting the fish to associate that crash of the feeder with the dinner bell. And certainly in previous sessions, it's not unusual to get a bite soon after casting out. Once you've got into the session, start getting a bit of feed in, the barbel will come to the sound, the smell, and the actual food that's coming down the river. It's a big river. You need to, you hope that there's some in the swim already, but you really need to feed them into action. Pull a few more fish upstream, hopefully to find your bait, but also if they are there but not quite in the feeding mood because the river's so low and clear, hopefully that regular introduction of small particles and the smell from the ground bait will kickstart a feeding spell at some point. And when that happens at Collingham, it can often be hectic. You might get 2 or 3 fish in a few casts, as happened with me on my very first visit here. I couldn't quite believe it. Cast away, fed away for a good 2 or 3 hours without a sniff, was getting a bit disheartened, and then 3 barbel in 3 chucks, and that's what can happen here. It's really, as I'm always saying, a matter of keeping the faith, keeping the feed going in, and hopefully it will happen for us today. I've just been chatting to a nice angler from Kent here with a couple of mates. I heard from Kai that there was a group up from Essex certainly yesterday, and I think for most of the week, and it's amazing how far people travel to fish the Trent for barbel. Such is the possibility on offer here. The big rivers seem to be the Trent, the Wye, the Severn, which I'm yet to fish. It's on my hit list, the Severn, at some point. Discovered the Wye earlier this year, and that was fantastic for sheer numbers of fish. Incredible. I've not had a bad moment on the Wye. And of course the Thames, although the Thames still has mega sized barbel, they are few and far between, or a lot of effort is required to try and find them. I've certainly not managed it yet, but always nice to meet people on the Trent and have a chat about their experiences. He was saying he felt like it was going to be hard because I don't think any of his small group have had any action since starting early this morning, but I said I feel quite positive because compared to the last 2 days it feels really fishy today. Another good reason to cast regularly is just to check your rig and check your bait. The first time I wound in, there was no pellet on either rig, which is unusual, but the chap I was just chatting to said it'd been happening to him a fair bit this morning already, and I think it's the mitten crabs which have sadly infested this part of the Trent in recent years. Can be a pest. I've got my bait on fine that time. And it's rare with simple feeder rigs that you find yourself in a tangle, but you know, with bits of weed starting to come down the river now we're into autumn, you're fishing with an exposed hook, there's always a chance that gets caught up in something. And again, you're not just chucking it out and waiting. You're giving it a chance to check everything each time you rebait. One thing I will say against the cloudy skies is now we're in autumn, it does make everything feel a bit washed out and grey. The scenery is not exactly singing today, and it does feel a bit like the sort of industrial side of the Trent that some people think of when they think of this mighty river. Not everyone loves the idea of fishing it, and it can feel a bit wild and open on a grey day or grey morning like this, but it has looked spectacular in the sun in the last couple of days. And particularly if you've not seen either of those two previous videos from this autumn trip to Collingham, I'll give you a quick taste of just how beautiful this place is. There you go. The Trent can look majestic. Now I just need a fish to put the cherry on the cake. Well, time flies when you're busy casting and recasting and feeding all day, and it's now knocking on 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which in these short days of October means I may only have about 3 hours of fishing left, but they should be the prime hours. The tide really has fallen even further, or the river level's fallen even further since this morning. It's got to be at its lowest ebb at the moment. It's down another inch or two on when I started, and I'm sure that tide's due to start pushing it back up again in the next hour or two. But a few little indications, or big indications, have started turning up in the last half hour. One of the nice blokes from Kent came wandering down and said he was off to see someone on a peg just 3 pegs down from where I'm fishing, who'd apparently had 2 barbel in quick succession, and no one's been catching all day. So that was like the traditional Trent way, like a light switch. suddenly go from blanking to bagging, and by the time he'd been down and come back up, he'd watched him have a third. So, you know, that guy's day has gone from really difficult like the rest of us to 3 barbel, and who knows, maybe he's enjoying even more right now. But not only that, I've just seen the chap in the swim down from me have a fish as well. I can't quite see him, but saw the fish rolling on the surface as he played it in. So that's 3 fish 3 pegs down and 1 fish 1 peg down. And that can be the way on the Trent. The fish move around. There's probably always fish in front of you to some degree, but some of the bigger shoals are moving up and down, and you never know, they might be moving my way. But yeah, even without that theory and that evidence of some fish being caught, there's the tide change and the river level to change to come yet, and we're heading into the late afternoon and evening, and so far the clouds have stayed overhead. The umbrella's gone away, but still nice and low light levels. I'm really still hopeful I can manage at least 1 more barbel before I have to head back home. Everything crossed. Kai's just been for a second visit of the day, his afternoon or evening walk, and it's always a pleasure to chat with him, but he was a messenger of doom. There's been 1 or 2 anglers have caught today. Chap a few pegs down from me, 1 or 2 fishing where I was yesterday, and that's about it. He said it's been really dire. He's an honest bloke, and he even told someone I know not to bother coming up, or a friend of a friend he told not to bother coming up because it was a long journey for them, and it's just not fishing well this week. Again, lack of rain being the problem. But I did get those 2 late yesterday, and that made the whole day more than worthwhile. Went to bed dreaming of barbel, so I reckon I've got about an hour and 20 left. There's not even been any tide today. I'd noticed that. Kai had too. He said it's not really come up at all this afternoon. That could be a factor, but it just feels like the fish are not being in the mood. So everything crossed again for the final hour or so. Tiny sight of the sun, the setting sun, as I prepare to make one of my last casts. And I've not stopped. I've kept the faith. Just break it a touch before it hits the water, get everything out in a straight line. Maybe just like yesterday, the fish will start biting as soon as that sun hits the horizon. Not far off it now. Just sense the river's picking up a bit of pace. I don't know why, but there's a bit more foam coming down, and the river just seems to be pushing through a bit more. The sun is just about to hit the horizon as well, so if it's going to happen, it's very soon. I think these are going to be my last casts. I'll let them settle until I need to go after this. There's one. please. Please, please, please. Make all my Collingham wishes come true. Last chance. There we go. Please. Is that gone? Oh my god, I think it has. Is that a fish or is it a snag? Might be a snag that's come in, or is it going to start thumping? Just packing up. Oh my god, it's a fish. Talk about last minute. Oh, just packing up. Leaving the rods till last and it's gone. Oh, flipping heck. Oh. Can you believe it, folks? Can you believe it? Talk about last gasp. Oh, it's the fish I was praying for. The upstream rod rather. The one that's chucked right over. Oh, and it has gone with, I was going to reel these rods in 2 minutes. Wow. Always got a chance at Collingham. The net now. Don't lose this, John. It's getting hard to see. Never give up. Keep the faith. He's not a biggie, but he's a Collingham barbel. We've done it. An absolute trip saver, day saver, session saver. I love these fish. That was well worth waiting for all day. Just saw the rod tip nod gently. I couldn't even tell he was hooked at first. Such a slow, steady fight, but he kicked off near the net and oh, he's sending me back down the M1 with a massive smile on my face. Keep the faith. Fantastic way to finish my trip to Collingham. Now it's time to get him back. Stay safe and I'll see you again soon on the bank.